Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it is Wednesday. I kind of thought that today would be a quiet day, but you can't really see it on the DOM here yet. Not very good liquidity on there. That means it's time to roll. But when we come over here to the charts, what? Ooh, another big climb here this morning. Out of nowhere, it seems to me. Well, first thing, let's make sure we have the voice squawk going here. We did have, or rather we do have, new home sales today and a 7-year auction. Hearing stuff about Iran right now, but I don't know what is driving that. But today we have NVDA earnings. Yeah, let's have the day chart of the ES up, okay? I am seeing a lot, and I mean a lot of analysts basically betting everything on NVIDIA earnings. That they anticipate that the NVIDIA earnings and the guidance is going to be very good, and that is going to, convince the market that everything is okay. So if those NVIDIA earnings come out tonight and they miss on the demand number, that is, NVIDIA's expected demand is not as high as the market is expecting, that's probably the end of this market. Like, I'm not going to say that means that we have a recession, but we're probably going to that 200-day moving average. Almost certainly. Okay, so here's the treasuries. All right, we had a bit of a move down overnight, and we have since recovered that. That's maybe that strong move up is not such a big deal. S&P 500. By the way, when I was reading the news and everything about this, I did mention the down, but I didn't realize it was that big. And they were kind of citing oil as the reason for that. Okay. S&P 500. Pretty ugly day yesterday, but, they recovered most of it, right? It's not that bad. Not that bad. Okay, well, here's oil. Okay, so, well, now that's really interesting because oil is just down super big. But not overnight. I don't know what that's about. Gold had a bit of a drop yesterday. Silver still underperforming. Copper up big overnight. Donald Trump saying some things about trying to protect the copper industry in the same way that they want to protect the steel industry, etc., etc. So it seems like the prices of copper up because of that, at least over in the Western world. Japanese yen up there. Still doing okay. Everything looks, it's been kind of quiet on that front, but the Japanese yen has been looking good. And then Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin. Pretty big dump yesterday. That's like, that alone is a 10% drop, right? You don't get to scary levels in Bitcoin where Michael Saylor is underwater and things like that until you get to 62,000 or something like that. Okay, so that's way down there. GameStop is still talking about buying $5 billion in Bitcoin. The problem is I really think that $5 billion in Bitcoin would do that much. I think it would probably bring them back up to here. But then next time it dumps, then what? Now you're just the bag holder. Well, we'll see what happens with that. It's a curious saga. You know what? I shouldn't have said anything because the whole thing about retail traders put so much money into GameStop that kept, multiple times where the thing just took off and all sorts of craziness happened. They did all sorts of offerings. They raised all sorts of money. And then the best thing that they can think of to do with it is to buy Bitcoin with it. What a load of shit. Those guys over at GameStop were pulling everybody for fools the whole time. They didn't do jack squat with that company. And I feel like that is like a violation of the public's trust, and that they should be prosecuted for it in some way, but they probably never will. And it makes me mad. It makes me mad. All right, so I think that I am going to come in and look at some code here at the beginning. Oh, make sure that okay, it is. So I have making sure that our strategy is enabled. We haven't gotten an imbalance up to 60, but I left it running overnight. And we did fix the issue where it was trading when it's not supposed to. Let's see here, it trades yesterday. Very good. Missed this larger one, but that's okay. But Julian was having some issues, and I'm realizing now that sounds like he's in the Netherlands. I'm on NL, that must be Netherlands, right? He is. I changed the separators in Windows. It looks to me like when you export a decimal on his machine, that it exports it with a comma instead of a period. They liquidated traders because Bybit was hacked. Dude, the Bybit thing. Okay. That is so crazy to me. Because I've seen all of these infographics about how big it was. That was a massive hack. It was so much bigger than any other hack we've seen. But I don't really see anybody talking about it other than how big it was. I feel like that should be a bigger deal. And is the decline in Bitcoin because of the Bybit hack? Maybe. Okay, yeah, you're right, Octavius. I need to stop yapping and we need to roll over, okay? It's M, right? ZBM? Yep. Hey, I remembered it for once. That's cool. The dependent network service was not available. Oh, because it wants to do ZBM4. Ha ha ha. Okay. So I need to come in and probably download instruments. CBOT. Update. Oh, maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe it's just an all under CME on this data provider at least. Okay, let's try that again. ZBM 25. Okay. So for that, should we? No. Well, I'm not gonna mess with it. It should remove the old one out of the list, but that's okay. I wonder why I did that. Okay, whatever. ZNM 25. ZFM 25. And I'll do it for all of my little windows over here. Come on. It's got all of those. Ninja Trader is not rolling. I'm just going to let it do its thing, I guess. Or do I have to, like, restart Ninja Trader for it to see that? Let's do that, because I did not restart overnight. It's not anywhere close to the strategy engaging. We'll just restart Ninja Trader. It's nice to see Ninja Trader close correctly, and because he says that his Ninja Trader rolled. Yeah, well, I hope that this isn't one of those problems with, like, my older version of it, you know. A lot more volume, what, in the new contract? There's definitely more liquidity. Oh, yep, there it is. Now it wants to roll everything over. That's interesting. I don't get the auto rollover notification unless Ninja Trader is just starting up. I have to wait for all of the charts to load up, and then I'm gonna click done and they're all gonna reload anyways. R/futures trading gold is absolute dog poop. What gives with this? I get beaten up and whipped around in gold. I'd love to hear suggestions from the trenches on how people trade this. I'm trying smaller positions and wider stops, but it's not helping. You know what? I think that gold might be a great market to, well, not a great market, but it might be an interesting market to play. But I don't think it would be an interesting market to scalp. Nope, I think it would be quite a difficult and painful market to scalp. BP to ditch renewable goals and return focus to fossil fuels. Yeah, that's interesting. He wants to see your negative deltas in Xan? Well, we'll enable this here in a second. We should be able to see it. So when we come back over here and we look at things now, there was a pretty good rise, but it is coming back down, and it's about a 10K difference. So I don't see anything crazy, but a decent amount of selling. Enough that kind of makes you question that original up move. We could put it that way. Okay, So still not triggering the algo, but we're good. I'm going to leave that there. In the other window, I'm going to pull up some proprietary code and see if there's something in the way that I export this stuff. Generate data. So I'm doing an implicit conversion to string. Currently, it says that it should always be doubles, though. That's interesting. The toString method formats a double value in the default G or general format of the current culture. So I wonder, on my data, you've been noticing market price anomalies? Oh, do tell. The problem that you're going to get there, well, I mean, we can look at whatever it is that you're going to talk about, right? But the problem is that you need a lot of data, right? We as humans are not capable of looking at enough data to really find a true inefficiency, right? If it was really something that a human can notice, it would probably already be taken out of the market. Oh, actually, I think, was it over here? Yes. Okay. So I think it's funny, the number of, you know, how many points of precision it looks for. I think we could get away with 4 instead, right? language invariant double dot toString. I'm passing a double across the network. The network is fine in English, but in French it is comma 25. And when I go from French to an English computer, that doesn't work. Use value.toString culture info dot invariant culture. Oh, what's that? Doesn't tell me what it is, actually. How do you take screenshots of Jigsaw? Oh, so if you have any window open and in focus and you press Alt plus print screen, it will take a picture of just that window. And then you go into Discord and you press Control V, which is the universal key binding in Windows for paste. And it will paste the picture that you just took into Discord. Well, the most basic I mentioned yesterday are impulse price moves that go, yeah, but we already tested that. It didn't work. At least it didn't work within a certain set stop and target. So I think I have to add using statement up here, using system.globalization. Yeah, we tested. No. We tested that after that. Maybe you didn't see that part. So hold on a second. Okay, that seems fine. I'm gonna export this. Not going to include the strategies in this. Oh. Yield curve. And there's the Z's. And the F's. Okay. Okay. Did it do it? Yes, it did. Just doesn't close the window. Okay. Okay, Julian, I just sent you a new version of the indicators with a fix for that. Even though it sounds like that you fixed it within your windows, I'm sure that we're gonna run into somebody else with that. So you can try that and see if that fixes things. Because it's supposed to use a culture invariant format now. I'm gonna be testing it on my site as well. So okay. Okay, the testing does not take context to any trade. So what you're saying is that there is not actually a market aberration in there when you consider the risk reward and everything else, but that somehow there is within certain situations, right? We're back to A has no edge. B has no edge. But somehow A plus B will equal 1. That doesn't make sense. I mean, the larger claim here is that you're saying that there is a statistical inefficiency in the market there around that thing, and there isn't. There isn't. You just can't see enough data to see what happens. And in fact, when we went back to the test, so like this particular one is I'm reason I'm gonna harp on this particular one is because we have some larger data that kind of contradicts your theory about the market, right? Because your theory about the market is that we can have some sort of, prices moving around some sort of a moving average, and it will come back to that moving average, right? But what we actually find empirically is that when you have a move that's driven by a lot of buying, there is a short-term mean reversion period like this, and then the impacts of that are permanent. And so it's just, you know, the moving average eventually catches up. And so coming in here and trying to trade like that it's going to revert back to the mean doesn't really work. There are some signals that could, in order flow, that could potentially identify that point, and then you might have an actual trade. But there's still some problems with it, because it can still do that sort of a thing, right? Rather, or in other words, the market has a long memory. So, but if we're going to get into like kind of a more general thing of like trying to understand and test the market about certain things, okay? If we believe that there's a certain principle about the markets, like we can go in, we can test it. Okay, but then you say that's not a good test because it doesn't take into account the conditions. So why is it that market aberration only exists under those conditions? And can you actually specify those conditions so that we can prove that that's true? Right? What you're kind of saying really sounds to me like goalpost moving, and I'm not accusing you of being like disingenuous. I'm accusing you of being naive, right? You want to believe the thing, and so you're going to come up with every excuse as to why it's still true despite the evidence that you're seeing, right? Per your drawing, those are not strong trends. I don't know. We were testing it with a 10 standard deviation. You said it was 10 standard deviations. It was... I'll pull up the code now. Now that I fixed that problem. Close all of these. And come down to the strategy. And... yeah, so it's this right here. So we are using AMA multi-Bollinger Band, which is basically just a more advanced Bollinger Band that gives me all sorts of control over things like the mid-band, etc. So I am using a SMA mid-band. I am using the oh, I can change it. The default is mean absolute, but I used standard deviation. And then the deviation multiplier of 10. So 10 times the standard deviation. Which basically just means like it has to be a really, really big one. But honestly, I don't have any, so you will find that the impact of a large meta order tends to follow a square root law like this. And that when that meta order ends, there is a short-term mean reversion period that follows a 3/5 law. Okay. And after that, the price impact is permanent. And for price to move another direction, it's new meta order coming through. And it doesn't matter how big this is, but there is a scenario where if it gets really big, the market becomes unhinged. But then the behavior that you get after that is radical. It's not going to be mean reverting. Okay, you want to talk about something else? But that was the scenario you laid out for us yesterday that we tested. And this was the strategy that we used to test it. Make that smaller so we're not covering up some of the data here for you guys. We are getting a pretty big sell impulse coming through now. Angling at 45 degrees out. So when the slope of the simple moving average is more than 1. Do I have an indicator on here that's like slope? Or maybe derivative? So I didn't catch Julian's comment earlier, but I think you're on the right track. The algo needs to have an edge that can be enhanced with all these filters, mostly enhanced as in minimizing risk. Yeah, that's exactly it. Is that you find a general aberration in the market, and then you filter down when you actually trade on that inefficiency based on certain risk parameters. Like, I only take it when there is strong trend in the market or whatever the deal is. So what I'm hearing is that if the SMA is a certain amount, with the slope of the SMA is a certain amount, and then price goes below it, then it should come back up. So like if we would want to make a new indicator that's like derivative or slope, right? Then we say if slope is greater than a certain value and cross below the moving average, then I would trade it on the continuation of some sort. Blown account, I really don't think you're listening to what I'm saying. Why do you think that's going to work? So, like, there is a billion different strategies that I could come in and I could write, right? So why out of all of the billions of strategies that I could write to try and find an edge in the market, do you want to do that? But why? Why? What makes you think that that's going to be a profitable strategy? Oh my gosh, the new squawk is... Oh, okay. Trump was tweeted about, trying to balance the budget. Note that last night the Republicans in the House were able to pass a budget bill, which would include the whole, like, no taxes on tips thing. So everybody start tipping me here on YouTube because they can't tax me on that. I have a suspicion it's because of an eyeball monkey brain back test. I think it's because he has a chart up and he's been told that the way that you trade is you put up a chart and then you find some sort of aberration in what you're seeing on the chart, and then that's how you take the trade, right? And that's why he thinks that that's going to work, right? Yeah. But he also thought that, like, that standard deviation setup that we did would be a profitable one, right? That if price gets too far away from the moving average, that it will tend to come back to the moving average. It's not true, because sometimes the moving average comes back to the price instead. Uh-oh. Okay, so there's been this thing about to help Ukraine, they have to make some sort of a deal with the United States over mineral rights, and Zelensky was supposed to come to the White House and meet them, but now Zelensky is saying that the deal is not finalized, and so now the White House is saying, well, if the deal's not finalized, then there's no reason for him to come to the White House. I read this thing the other day, we never talked about this, but, last week we had what was seemingly, Donald Trump always kind of had like a, maybe he's siding with Russia in the conflict sort of a thing. But when he actually started, like, saying things against Zelensky, like, the market really reacted to that strongly, which was very, very curious to me. Well, it turns out that behind the scenes, that the White House felt that they had been burned by him, that he, like, said some things and led them to believe certain things, and then he turned around and started saying something else to the media. So they don't like Zelensky because of that. And this sounds like this is now a second violation of sorts, Because I've been trading some of those, primarily scalps, and I'm not looking for... Okay, but do you realize how many trades you would need in order to verify that it's a good strategy? So this is why we went and we did this before. Give me a number. How many trades do you think? How much of a time? Actually, now you triggered me into something that happened earlier in the week. So somebody on Reddit posted a strategy, and they had like a month's worth of backtest. And then over the month's worth of backtest, it like won like 80% of the time or something like that. And they're like, look at how great this trade is, right? And I said, we really need to make fun of people more when they post a backtest that's only 1 month of data. Okay? And everybody liked that. Like, that got tons of upvotes. Like, look, it's not necessarily about trying to be mean. I guess I'll admit that in a situation like that, it is a little bit fun to be mean, but it's not without purpose, okay? Because you're not being nice to people by letting them waste time, with like really simple mistakes, like not including enough data in the backtest, right? So if you set the community standard right away that you need a certain amount of data before you even really bother showing it to anybody else and asking them questions about it, you're saving everybody a lot of time and you're improving the community. Okay? People like that. So then the guy said, well, there's a reason that I can only backtest it this much, which I found really weird. Like, because he was doing it in NinjaTrader. What data provider does he have that only gives you a month's worth of historical data? He's not using my indicators. So why does he only have a month's worth of historical data? Unless it's like he relies on tick data and maybe he doesn't have more than a month of tick data. I don't know. Anyways, so he says that and I respond, well, if you send the algorithm to me, I'll backtest it over 10 years. Because, yeah, I can do it over 10 years. Not if it's tick data, but we're just kind of guessing why he doesn't seem to have the data. Most brokers will give you at least 2, but I can go all the way back to like 2012 or something like that. So, Reddit flipped out. I got downvoted so hard by that. And like some of the comments were like, well, that wouldn't really make sense to go over it. I'm trying to use my most autistic voice, but I don't think I'm doing a very good job there. Well, sometimes an algorithm won't work for that long, so it wouldn't make sense to backtest it over 10 years. Okay, but guys, it's like a strategy that maybe takes one trade a day. It maybe takes one trade a day. So in order to know whether there's actually an edge in that strategy or not, you probably need at least 5 years. So you need 5 years of data to verify that the strategy works, and it only works over a 1-year time period, then there's no way for you to know if there's actually an edge to it or if it was just random chance. Reddit doesn't seem to understand this, but I didn't really didn't completely go into it. So blown account is probably another person with tilt trying to undermine the stream. No. Nah, you're not listening. How many trades? Well, so if it takes there's roughly 250 trading days a year, okay? So if it takes 250 trades a day in order to get, or a year, if it takes 250 trades a year, okay, and we need 1,000 samples to verify the performance of the strategy, then you need 4 or 5 years, right? Now, of course it does. Did I say it works 100% of the time? Would you like me to point how the DOM isn't 100? No. I want enough data samples to actually verify that there's really something there that's not just you being fooled by randomness. No, it's not blown account. The reason, okay, I'm sorry. The reason that they're giving you shit is because I do not rely on my past performance as authority, right? Like there's an inherent flaw in saying, well, I traded this thing and I made money from it, so it must work. There's an inherent flaw in that. There's a couple of reasons why that might not make sense. One is you just got lucky that it's just so happens it was random that it worked out for you, but that there's no actual real statistical behavior there. over a long time period, right? Another possibility is that you could be lying. Because I didn't, even if you gave me broker statements, I would have to have like some way to like independently verify with the broker statements, all of this sort of thing, right? Because like, here's the thing you got to understand, okay? If this inefficiency in the market really exists, you and I can make a ton of money from it and become super famous, right? Like, not only can we make a hedge fund that trades off of it, but we can go and like write up an article about it and prove it, and then submit it to all of the academic journals, and all of the academic journals will love to hear about this new fundamental behavior of the markets we've discovered that nobody else has been able to find. And then probably all of the different hedge funds and banks and everything will want to hire us so that, we can help them take advantage of this inefficiency and or find more, right? But not if it's just, well, this one retail trader, he had a year's worth of profits from that. That's not, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to laugh at you. Right? So I don't come in and say, oh, the market is this way. You should listen to me that the market is this way because I've made money in the past. I mean, I've done okay. But I say you should listen to me and that the market behaves this way because I can prove it with the market data. You get? Huh. So we gotta go back. Why would you believe that would work? Right? Because you tried it and it worked. I'll just keep going doing it. No, okay, it's fine. But I can tell you how that's no, actually that's not fine. That's not fine. I just can't let watch. It just irks me so much. It's an ADHD thing. It's like that justice sensitivity thing. It's like I just can't handle you wasting your time with that. Like it's like because what's going to happen is you're going to trade it and then your luck will run out, and then what have you done? You've just wasted like 2 years of your life on something that was random. Like that's what's going to happen. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to realize that there's a deeper contradiction here, right? Like, do you believe that we can prove this behavior and submit it to a journal? Like, if you really think that this is a thing, then why can't we prove it with the data and submit it to a journal? Why don't you show us? Well, you already said it's not 5 years, right? So we already know what we're going to say about it, right? I don't know if he's listening closely enough to answer my question. If it's really a behavior, then why don't we prove the behavior and submit it to an academic journal? Hello, Anna Stefa. Yeah, he's not going to show his results. He wants everybody else to show their results, right? But like the thing is none of them are making a claim, right? So I saw this thing the other day. This guy, he's a therapist. And his thing is like, okay, basically all I do as a therapist is convince people to change their minds. And he goes through the process that he uses to convince people to change their minds. And it basically, it revolves around putting them into a state of cognitive dissonance long enough. And then people will change. People will realize that their behavior and what's going on and everything doesn't match up with their underlying beliefs, right? Okay. But what do you do when the behavior that they have is completely in line with their beliefs? And it's just that they have some beliefs that are, or values rather, that are really working against them, right? In this case, some people believe that the market is efficient and that success in the market signifies something. So because he has had some success in the market, he believes that that makes his insight better than other people's. Like, I think that's what it really comes down to. And the reason that that is a harmful value or belief for people to have is that the market is not efficient. And people can make great sums of money just by being incredibly lucky. In fact, one of the best ways to become a millionaire, billionaire is to just take a lot of really stupid risks. And if you do it enough times, eventually one of them works out. That doesn't mean that you've discovered anything fundamental about the market. It just means that you were lucky. Because there's probably a dozen other people that were just as stupid, but it didn't work out for them. Right? So if the market is not efficient, then we can't just rely on the market results to prove something, can we? We can't just say the person who has the best insight, who understands the market the best, is the one among us. We're gonna all show our 5-year history, and then the person that has the net most money made, he's the only person that we're gonna listen to, right? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? No, if we want to prove something about the market, shouldn't we prove it empirically? Like, can you imagine a world where it's like the person that we go to for physics advice to tell us about like the way that physics work is like the person that made the most money or something like that? Like, it doesn't work that way, does it? No, you have to like do experiments and then provide the data from the experiments and show it to the scientific community that shows that the behavior in the world that you're claiming actually happens. And yeah, it's not like it's always, not everything is always, it works every time. Like a lot of things in physics, it's like, you know, if I drop a ball this high, this is how long it will take, and you can measure it. It's extremely accurate, right? But there are plenty of other things in physics that you know, like require Gaussian motion, right? Just like the market does. And so what do? You have to collect enough data to show that behavior still, right? Like you show some statistical property about the behavior that can only be seen over a large enough data set, right? That's how you prove something. So I really don't care if you made money or lost money. I mean, if we're all going to show results, then it's probably going to be negative. I don't have a 5-year record of profitability. I've been doing pretty good recently, but I don't have 5 years. And based on everything that we know, the chances of any of us getting that 5 years is pretty low. That's why I always go to that I just always go right there, because everybody will shut up after that. Because I don't know if it actually exists. Somebody that has 5-year history of profits, you know? Let's just all sit here silent until someone shows a 10-year history of an algo. Okay. Okay. So a little bit of progress, right? So if we don't have the 10-year history of an algo to prove something, then we would have to do some work to do that, right? Okay. I can code just about anything. So we can totally prove it. I think I know how it's going to turn out. So that's why I asked you earlier, of all the billions of different ways that we can code it, why that one? Because here's why I say why it should not be that one. We're going to pick one thing to backtest and spend our time on today. Here's why I think it should not be that. Because every piece of empirical evidence that we have ever gathered on any subject like this says that prices are essentially martingales. Prices on short time frames are martingales. That the best estimation of the future price is the current price. And why is that? Well, it's probably because the market is very sensitive to all orders. So if there is some sort of statistical inefficiency, people notice it, they start trading on it, and trading on it removes it from the market. Since everybody has access to price history, there's a very, very, very low chance that you're going to find some statistical aberration of sorts from only looking at price history. And if you were to find one like that, I think that it would have to be a lot more complicated than what you're talking about. Because we've had there used to be all these algorithms that kind of died in the quant crash back in 2018. But there used to be all of these firms that they would run these generational algorithms. They'd have an algo that'd be like, okay, like what works best over the last week, and then we're gonna start doing that. And then that kind of stopped working. So then they kind of did this thing where it's like, oh, actually, there's like different classes of algorithms, and I switch between them. But then the quant crash came, and those all just got destroyed. Not really a thing as much anymore, right? But those algorithms, they were literally going through every night and trying like billions of different combinations of things. Like every little possible way of, like what is the slope of the moving average? How far away from they absolutely included that in their tests. Right? So again, why would you think that is the one worth putting your time into? Right? Now, you bring up my indicator suite, so like that's a good example, because my indicator suite is intended to show you things that we have proven there are statistical behaviors. And not just like the statistical behaviors like, the market tends to do this maybe because people think this way. But no, actual behaviors that like will always exist in the markets regardless of the way that people think, because of the structure of the market. They happen because of statistical consequences created by the very rules of the game. They're caused by the market microstructure, right? So one of them is that if you go in the sorry, let me start over again. One of them is there is strong autocorrelation in the sign of orders, which is to say, if you take an individual order and you say, who was the aggressor in that transaction? Was it a market buy or a market sell? Okay, it was a market buy. Now you come back an hour later and you pick another random order. There is a 0.5% chance that it will, higher than normal, 0.5% chance that it will also be a buy. So like 50.5% chance that it will also be a buy. Okay. Strong, and that's, 0.5 is small, but like after a whole hour, that's actually really, really significant. And why is that? Well, because there are guys out there that are buying and it takes them like literally all day to do it. Right. So I have a bunch of indicators that are looking at the orders, like the market order imbalance, and it's telling me, what percentage of the orders over the last 10 minutes were buys. Right. And then you can go and you can say, okay, so now we have a proven behavior of the markets. Can we turn that into a profitable strategy within the parameters for us, right? At the very least, then we are starting with something that, we're starting with something that we know is real, that we know that there's a real market aberration there, right? It's also something that not very many retail traders, at least, are able to do because they don't have the data or the infrastructure or anything to do this sort of a thing, right? Like there are order flow indicators out there, but they're very hard to backtest. And so I have gone ahead and I have created all of the infrastructure to allow you to backtest them, right? Do you see where I'm getting? Okay, why don't you submit your indicator proof to a journal? Okay, so if I had found a strategy that, I don't know, so like we have an algorithm going right now, right, that we're kind of testing, right? If that the testing works out, and granted, I can't do a 5-year history. I wish I could do 5 years, but I don't have that much data. Then we're going to trade and we're going to make money from it, yeah. Because the thing is that like the market aberration that the strategy is based on is something that's already been submitted to journals and is well proven, right? And now I have another one. I have the inventory cost basis, right? That is a model to try and estimate where average market maker positions are from, right? So that is something that I absolutely think we could submit to a journal if we had the data to verify it with, right? If I was able to find a data set that showed me all of the transactions over a month, like for instance, there was this thing, there's this one study that's like a million meta order analysis in Bitcoin. And these researchers were given a data set from Mt. Gox before Mt. Gox went under, right? So unfortunately, I've kind of looked around and I don't think that data set is just floating around for you to download for free, unfortunately. You probably have to pay to get it, right? But if I had access to that data set, then I could do some, analysis is the word that we want to go with. I could then do some research and analysis on how accurate that model actually is. And then, yeah, I would submit it to a journal. Yes. Well, I would probably talk to some of my researcher friends and have them help me write something that we could submit to a journal, right? Yeah, if you pick a brand, you say a nice Honda. Does Honda really care how you use the Honda? My point is, Seth is a Honda manufacturer and he doesn't care how you drive his Honda. Oh, I really love your analogy there, D. It's curious that is an argument that detractors choose often. But I think that it is kind of indicative of that people want everything handed to them, right? It's, you know, it doesn't make sense in their mind that somebody would provide a tool that allows people to do their own analysis and find their own things about the market. Rather, somebody would only provide a tool if there's a whole strategy and course and everything that they're selling along with it that does everything for you, you know? Because that's the way that they think. That's what they're looking for. That's the way that they think it should work. Seth is the only one in here grifting. Oh, I was grifting. That's a disingenuous representation of what my business is. My business is there is some data out there that the tools that you have doesn't let you see. And I have provided you with ways to see and analyze that data that you couldn't before. That's it. And I never said anything about that there is some sort of proven edge in them. There is a lot of statistical aberrations in order flow that you're not going to find in price. So I am definitely giving you some indicators that I think that you're going to find more interesting things in than you would find in price. And they are the indicators that I use myself. But the indicators are not suggesting any kind of a strategy for you to use. What is the Lux algo? I haven't heard of that before. It really is that Tilt went and created like a dozen accounts, or maybe it's, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Salim to me, but somebody has decided that they need to create multiple accounts to, you know, try and mess with me for some bizarre reason. And that was just the one that didn't get banned. Yeah, Salim was less serious about stuff. It is. And the thing is that, so then who could it be? And like some people are like really, I don't know. It's there's definitely like a so the thing that I find weird is that like normally somebody would have an agenda, like they're trying to undermine a creator so that they can try and pull the audience somewhere else, right? But this seems like somebody that just specifically has an agenda against me. Like they make some of the most ridiculous arguments, and that like really I think a genuine person would really be like would see the flaw in some of the arguments that they're making. But this person has such an agenda against me that they really are just like kind of willfully ignoring what would be normal sound logic. Yeah, it starts sounding like a new guy, but then it eventually breaks down. Oh, it's definitely the same guy. Which implies that they're the same person. It's definitely the same guy. But there's still the question is who are they and what's their agenda, right? And that goes back to another thing that I've kept saying about this. That's like the person does not actually listen to what we're actually saying and talking about. Like we'll talk about, here's an empirically proven behavior, right? But then it's like it goes in one ear and out the other, and they don't remember anything about that argument. They will then go in and propose things that directly contradict the information that we just gave. Like, no, Tilt never brought any value. He did not. He just wasted time. Yeah, they just wait for us to respond so that they can argue their point in the direction they were thinking of as you respond. Yeah. But they don't hear anything that I say and incorporate that in. It's like an LLM would probably argue better. That's what you should do, Blown Account. You should put all of our responses into ChatGPT and use ChatGPT to try and argue with me. Because your arguments suck. We should just try the strategy of, oh man, you're a great trader. I wish I was more like you, and just leave it at that. Yeah, I really should. Well, so, you know, going back to this thing I said earlier about this guy that is a counselor or a therapist or whatever, and his whole thing about how to get people to change their mind and things like that. You know, like trying to use logic and emotional appeals and things like that aren't very effective. In fact, it can work against you, right? Which is what I do. I guess more broadly, when people come in and they have, you know, a really strong belief that contradicts the market data, I don't really care if I convince them or not. You know, I don't really care if I convince them or not, because if I convince them, I'm just creating more competition, you know? If there's more people that know this thing, there's more competition. Although I'm a little bit torn on that whole thing, because I don't necessarily need more competition, but I also feel confident that, like, I'm going to do this better than most retail traders anyways, despite everything that I teach them. And I also think that the market has become so tilted towards the big institutions, and the small guys trying to market make are practically non-existent, and that the market would be in a better place if we had more retail traders that were competent enough. So I am kind of like, I want to level up the retail trading community a little bit, in the hopes that more balanced market would provide better opportunities for us. Okay, so I guess I do actually want to convince them, but or at least I want as many people to understand this stuff as possible. I guess the other side of it is that there are implications for this beyond trading that are very, very important to society, right? So I want as many people to understand this as possible, but the people that don't want to believe it, I don't have to convince them, right? It's not like a huge loss if I don't convince them. So is it like better to go for a less combative strategy that might convince those people? And I don't know, maybe we'll make a better stream. Or is it better to use them and the argument and the conversation as an opportunity to teach about things that we do know? You know? That's the part that I think that they miss. You're just information, not trading strategies. All this bullshit about which tools are better, and it's like, just take the information and keep it in your mind and use whatever. Yeah, that's exactly it, right? I mean, some of that information is that certain types of strategies are just not going to work, but a lot of what I'm saying is take what we do know about the market, keep that in mind, and then use that to analyze the market when you have an informational advantage, right? Because at the end of the day, my advantage is not really, oh, I can see this market order imbalance, right? My advantage is, well, I know the NVIDIA earnings are today, and that the market is going to be wishy-washy until those come out, right? I'll be the first to call you out on that you don't have any entry card. It's totally true. You trade the micros because if you traded CB, you'd get your, yeah, it's true. The entries are not accurate enough. I mean, lately they've been good, right? But the whole reason why I've kind of been like, what the F, is because they shouldn't be that good. So I can only assume that it's luck, right? But I've not been able to find any kind of market behavior or information that reduces adverse excursion, other than getting in when there's a really strong flow already coming. And if I'm trying to get in before that flow, then that often means that they move against me. So yeah, there's not any set entry criteria. And the edge that I'm trying to trade off of each day kind of changes day by day. The reason why you and your minions are losing traders, well, I don't feel like that is an accurate summation of our collective performance. I would put my group of traders up against anybody else's group of traders. Okay, like you take the people that I've taught, okay, and you take their collective profits against people that have traded, smart money concepts. I'd take us any day, any day. Okay, most traders will lose. That's just the nature of the zero-sum game, right? So I can't expect most of my followers to have success, but I do think that we've had people that have more success than other communities. Like, we've had the same community for like almost the whole time that we've been doing this stream. Like we were in that situation where it's like, wow, our community is so incredibly consistent. When 2020 hit, and we were already like 3 or 4 years into it at that point, right? So our community lasts, and it's the same people sticking around in a way that most other trading communities don't. Most people don't last more than a year because of their understanding of the market and their understanding of risk and having realistic expectations, right? But what was his point? The market is binary, green, red candles. It goes up or down. It's trending or not, buy or sell, etc. I mean, but it's not, because all of the things that you're talking about are random. like whether the market is trending at the time or not, if you're going to go and do a statistical analysis of it, is random. Now, if you have information outside of the price, like that NVIDIA earnings are today, then it's not as random. Shouldn't expect there to be super strong trends today, unless the NASDAQ decides to just bid massively into NVIDIA earnings. But the treasuries, yeah, past 2 days this week, we got really good trends, right? Didn't expect it on Monday. Kind of expected it on Tuesday, but I wasn't sure enough to like really mess with it, and I wanted to look at other things. Today was not expecting it, and we have not gotten it. Just have one strategy. I trade my setup, so it doesn't seem like you wouldn't be here. Well, he seems to claim that he finds it entertaining in some way, but I don't really think that he does. There's got to be something else at play, like that he has been sent from some other creator to try and undermine the stream or something like that. You know, like. You're coming close to admitting that it's not the method, it's the trader. Well, no, it's not that. Like, so if I have people and they come in, they show me some profits, right? Well, then it's all of the same problems that I was talking about earlier. It doesn't matter whether it's proving that you're not profitable or trying to prove that our way of doing things is profitable. Although I wouldn't say that our way of doing things is profitable. I would say that our way of doing things is empirically backed, or at least the concepts that we're relying on are empirically backed, because we aren't actually advocating a strategy, right? I am advocating that you should put a large emphasis on fundamentals, breaking news sorts of stuff. And that's about as far as it really gets, isn't it? I don't know. But no, like unless they show me 5 years. Nobody's ever shown me 5 years. Never. But I have seen from Uzi and Octavius in particular, they've shown me some pretty impressive stuff. I must say. Like I've seen some people where it's like, yeah, like they had a period and they made money, but it really looks like that they were kind of like really taking on excessive risk, and that's kind of how it came about, right? But these guys, it was really more like small, consistent time, and it's really hard not to think that there was a real edge to what they were doing, at least for the time period, and that there's just, like, you have trouble dealing with something else that comes along and disrupts what you're doing, right? I don't know. The DOM is binary, cumulative deltas, but it's really, I mean, because you can choose. So trying to think of a strategy as binary really is removing so much of the possibilities of what you can do that can help a strategy, right? If a strategy is always, I can pick an individual point to market buy or market sell, then like that really limits you, right? Because some of the best stuff out there is about, I put my limit order here, right? Put the limit order on and cancel it under these conditions. Uzi says, yeah, I never took on excessive risk. No 40 tick stops with a 10 tick pro. Yeah. Well, the first time that I came in, what I recall was Uzi showing me like almost 2 years of just taking 1 tick a day. And that was it. Why are you mum on the judge's ruling against Trump executive orders? Well, I would expect there to be lots of low-level courts ruling against certain executive orders, but I'm pretty confident that in the longer run that Trump's going to win all those legal battles. But we haven't really had any of them that has really been like final, right? And that strategy and my moving away from it is an example of me learning from your fat. Oh, I moved away from it before experiencing a fat old. Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is that, like, because I'm not trying to push a strategy, I think that we end up attracting a lot of people that are really more serious about it. Like, they have already done their own work and they have their own thing that they think that works. And they have already kind of figured out that price on short time frame is basically random, right? Because most of you guys, you were something well before you ever met me. I didn't make Uzi, and I didn't make Octavius. If anything, they made me. Oh, really? I think when I sent you my results, I was hitting like 72%, and I drifted away from it when I started to go down into the 60s. Oh, okay. And then it, you know, if you would have kept following it, it would have been really bad, huh? Paul says I was nothing. I appreciate it. Either it stopped working or I started sucking. You know, the whole discretionary trading thing is really quite a conundrum, because, you know, if you're doing well and then you're not doing well, how much is it you versus the market changing or something like that, you know? And like there's a lot of it adds a lot of difficulties and complexities, and definitely takes us out of the world that I would prefer to be in, where like everything is empirical, right? But then at the same time, the market is so complex, that finding an edge is so hard, that's basically the world you have to go into to find an edge as a retail trader, I feel. I just can't do it anymore, man. I just can't do it anymore. Right? Like we talked. How long was it? We talked for like 30 minutes. Was about how much data you need and all of this, and then he immediately is like, "Oh, but it was 2 winners today." Okay. Ugh. You literally didn't hear anything. You don't want him to be hidden? All right. I'm gonna unhide him. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna unhide him, and I'm just going to completely ignore him. It's so that you guys can continue to argue with him. How about that? So, by the way, I think we might actually have an opportunity here. I'm kind of looking at this. So, well, actually, no. So my thinking is that we might be able to fade this move, but it has been pretty consistently sell through the whole 90 minutes that we've been watching the market, right? Like, it looks too heavy. So my thinking is, well, because I'm not expecting there to be really big moves or anything, that anything like that is probably going to come back in. But I think that there's two problems with that. One is that the cumulative delta has been too much to the downside. I don't know, 20k net sell is pretty small, but yeah. And then issue number 2 is that if we were to mean revert, I think that it would probably be to like getting to 14.5 or 15 and getting kind of stuck. So I also think that in this situation that the risk reward isn't worth it. I'm supposed to just say, that's great. That's great. Have you tried running it over a 5-year history? Oh, are you guys messaging me some other stuff? Oh, D sent me a period. I don't know what that was about. Or were you just asking me to look at this other thing? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think what you're showing me here, D, is like, okay, there was a little bit of an imbalance and it went one tick lower, right? But it's kind of a mixed flow, right? Like you can have a situation where the market makers are just doing their thing and the noise traders, we're just doing our thing, but there's a big meta order sell and that's like all of the imbalance, right? And then you're really going to consistently see it. But what you could also have is you could have a variety of different players all taking different kinds of things at different times, right? And so then you kind of get two-way flow that's a little bit choppy. And that's kind of what that looks like. So when we have a situation like that, that's not necessarily the best trade for us unless we're willing to take on a little bit of risk and kind of play it the mean reversion game, right? Oh yeah, this is what AO was talking about earlier. What did you want to show me on this, AO? That this was the imbalance that you wanted to show. Oh, well, there was a big one right there. Is that what you were talking about? Is that right there? There was like an iceberg at 19 and they weren't able to get through it. Going with that left was a strong high that became a poor high, and that one tick retraced into a possible strong low. What I do see is that there was definitely, like, when we came in here, it really seemed like that if the market was going to trend today, it was going to be to the upside, and then it fizzled out really quickly. It fizzled out really quickly, and while the price movement has been kind of sideways, the market order imbalance has been pretty decisively to the sell side, but not large enough to trigger the algo that we've been testing. That's cool. I bet you we could get a bunch of... I bet you we could get a bunch of indicators to really make that SMA look really cool. So, you know, I was watching the other day, there's this new terminal out. You know, I would be using it except for that it's not in Windows yet. There's a new terminal written by the guy that like wrote Terraform and HashiCorp and all that. I forget his name. I forget. Oh, and it's called Ghosty. It's called Ghosty. And not only does Ghosty have like, you can like set a background or something like that. No. Ghosty like has full shader support. So you can have like, it looks like your terminal is underwater, or like the color of the text changes based on the shader or something like you can do super crazy stuff like that. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, I wonder what kind of things you could do for a chart like that. You know, like what if you wanted to make an indicator to like highlight a certain bar? You know, like one of the things that really drives me nuts with some of the NinjaTrader indicators that I've seen that are like, okay, maybe I want to trade based on a moving average. Let's keep it really simple. Are we above or below the moving average? And it changes the color of the whole bar based on the moving average, right? And I don't like that, because then it's like, yeah, but then I can't see if that bar was actually an up bar or a down bar. I mean, I can, but I don't like it, right? There's too many colors and there's too much information to try and differentiate them. I have to know all of the rules and sort it out, right? But what if we had all of these cool effects? Like I could make a bar, it's still going to be a blue bar or an orange bar, but I can also make that bar pulse. and I can like the amount of glow that's coming from the pulse is dependent on one thing, and how fast it pulses is based on some other thing, right? And so we could create like all sorts of cool effects that would be able to provide you even more information on the chart. Of course, probably the way that most people would use it would be to do junk technical analysis, but yeah, that's what most people use. If we're going to make a platform, we're really going to make money off of a platform, you are going to have to service those people, and that would be a feature that I think that those people would like. You know, that'd be cool. An LSD bar, exactly. Yes. Do you have an opinion on the Doge employee resignations due to being asked to do unethical things? You know, I haven't read a whole lot about that one, to be honest with you. I saw that yesterday. I did see that yesterday, but I didn't know what it was like. And I'm really skeptical about a headline like that when I read it on Reddit, right? Because it's often not an accurate. You know what, man, I tell you what, the most recent thing like that I saw was the whole thing like Elon Musk left his son on stage, because I saw that everywhere. And then finally a few days later, I saw a TikTok that showed the whole video from a different angle, and Elon was not abandoning his child at all. It was absolutely ridiculous. But on that one though, illegal immigrant, I would have to say that like you're gonna have a hard time if you're going to obsess over every tiny little thing like that. You know? Like, we're gonna have to create a framework. I don't know how I can provide this for you, but you have to provide a framework that's like, which stories should we care about, right? Well, I guess it depends on your goals. If it is for day trading, then that resignation's probably not a very important story, is it? But if you're politically engaged, well, I still don't think that it's a super important story, but okay, so there was a little bit further of a move there. That's interesting, though, that my market order imbalance is still saying it's actually above 50. So it is still kind of telling me to fade it. I would much prefer 13. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because this is just a sin. Okay, I'll do that. I might be able to just pull a tick out here. So let's not put that one on until this second one is filled. He doesn't have a signal service. He's trading a 12-period moving average on a 1-minute trade. At least with Ace, we had a weighted moving average. Ooh, I like that uptick. Come on, fill me. Come on. I liked the way that it flipped, but nobody's hitting it. 14. Okay, the resignation letter. Let's see. If we have a letter from the person, that might be interesting. Doge resignation letter, maybe. Who should we read it from? I'm kind of with all of the noise from AP News. I'm kind of hesitant to click on the AP News one. Let's view NPR, even though I don't like NPR either. Okay, so this right away, I'm reading this and it's this is a bullshit story. A group of 21 civil servants whose team was folded into Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency resigned on Tuesday. Okay, so why should I care about that? Yes, okay, so some holdouts from the deep state don't like what they're doing. Surprise! What? So, I want to try and get this back to like something higher level here. Why do you think that that's a big deal? Why is that a news story that I should care so much about? Oh, he does have a signal service. You say that he does have... Is he joking, or does he really actually have a signal service? So he is somebody that's here who's trying to sell a signal service. Yeah, AO has the ability to do that too. I mean, I would say like I always do all the moderating, right? And but if it's spam, if it's obvious spam, then you guys can try and take it out. But yeah, because you have the blue name. You have the blue name. It's kind of funny, like almost everybody on here is a blue name. You know what? We should just... Like everybody that I'm seeing here, I'm like, I totally trust too. There we go. Now everybody's blue. I'm really bothered that I didn't get filled there at 14 yet, because it was a really good uptick at points. Yeah, blue. Here, wait. You too. You too. There we go. With great power. Well, the primary reason that I've been giving people the blue names was so that they could post links. But sometimes even that doesn't work still. I don't know. YouTube's weird with that whole thing. You ready? I tried buying it, but I'm only looking for a tick. And I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated by it. I might try and scratch it. Would you resign from a job that you need? If I was a government worker, sure. Like, I mean, I would think that we should expect to see a lot of government workers take the buyout option that they're being offered. And then even after that, I think you should expect to see a lot of government workers resigning and protesting and so forth. Yeah. That shouldn't be surprising. But even then, let's just go along with your logic there. Okay, that these people, they need that job, and so it's a really significant thing that they believe enough in how they feel that they're willing to quit their job over it. Okay, that still doesn't give me any kind of a framework to work from that is like, why should I pay attention to this story more than other stories? Right? It's curious how shredding government will affect non-farms payroll and markets. Oh, I bet. Yeah. Because in all seriousness, it really looks to me like for the past year or two in particular, that the only thing that's really been holding the economy up and like keeping the jobs numbers from looking absolutely dismal was hiring from government. So if all of those jobs are now destroyed, then you're going to come back to a labor market that looks pretty bad. Yeah, and migrate. Yeah, that's true too. You know what, though? Something else is that I am kind of detecting hints that the market is getting better. But I'm worried that those hints that I'm seeing that the labor market is getting better might be seasonal. That it's not until mid-February that companies have decided everything for the year and have the bankroll to hire new people, and maybe that's why I'm seeing it all of a sudden. Because before, it was like there was maybe 1 or 2 jobs. Actually, it really was. There was 2 jobs that I was like seriously thought that, you know, I wanted and I was going to get. And they both didn't work out. And one I thought was kind of dumb, but you know what? There must have been somebody else that had experience, you know, whatever. And that one was for a bank, so I'm not going to cry about not getting that, because working for the bank would have been introduced a whole bunch of other problems, right? And then there was another one that I really was just kind of like, there's nobody in the world better than me for this, but they didn't pick me, so whatever. But then most of, you know, I have interviewed for lots of other jobs, but none of them ever really felt like a good fit. Now all of a sudden, I've got like 5 in the pipeline that are all like, I think that there's a relatively high possibility that I could get an offer from all of these jobs. And I'm just like, how is it that like nothing happened December, January, and now all of a sudden I can't even breathe because there's so many, I have to do so many interviews. I'm doing 3 today. I'm doing 2 technical interviews and 1 like a value interview. I've never had anybody do an interview that they specifically called a values interview, but yeah. So a shift in the labor market, but that might be seasonal. Okay, so that's my this didn't work, right? So in this situation, actually, I'm so concerned that I won't get filled on the offer that I'm just gonna bail. I think it was a decent try, but now the S&P 500 is rallying, so I think that that's why we're getting the behavior that we're seeing. I certainly wouldn't have taken that one, ever have taken that one live. Oh, Amazon has announced some AI thing. Okay, they didn't resign until they were asked to perform unethical duties. Right, but okay. I understand that. I mean, or rather, I got that that's what you would be picking up from it, right? Most businesses have a percentage of that could be true. Well, it's kind of more complicated than that, but there's always going to be a certain amount of people that are doing less work than other people, and it's not just that. It's like you know, you can have a company where everybody is contributing and is doing something for the company, but you need to cut costs anyways, you know. It's a little bit different with government, though, to be honest with you. Like, there's a lot of government jobs that are really like, they just exist for there to be government jobs. I'm gonna be so mad if they come back up and there's a fill at 14. There it is. that kind of a behavior doesn't necessarily make me feel like that I was right or that the trade was a good trade to begin with, but rather that we are kind of in a really tight market where there's a lot where they might be able to just mess with you, and it's probably not best to take live trades. But we could still try another scalp or two if I really feel confidently that like we can get a tick. Yeah, businesses have an incentive to cut costs. Well, with government, it's the opposite. If they cut costs next year, they will get a lower budget. Well, but I mean, that actually does play into businesses as well. But you are correct in that there is no kind of market balancing function to the growth of government, right? You can't sit down and say, this unit isn't making money, so we're going to get rid of it. Because if that was the standard that you use, all government offices would be eliminated, because government only does things that don't make sense for the private market to do because you don't make money from doing them. Okay, that would have been the film. At least on the first contract. Now on the second contract, I mean, that maybe is like, maybe my read of the area was good enough and I just wanted it to be too tight, right? But then in that case, it's still a bad trade to take, right? That's why I probably wouldn't take that one live. I suppose now you have a little bit more, because like now the flow is a little bit more in your favor. I asked that because the amount of documented cost dodges trimmed. Well, it's probably, yeah, it's not going to be a super large portion of the budget. That's true, because to really get significant numbers of the budget cut, you're going to have to cut military. You're going to have to somehow cut costs in Medicare and Social Security. And there's 14.5. Oh, wait, next time I see that, try and wait for a counter signal, because we've gotten away with that one a fair amount of times over the past few weeks, but that right there was exactly why I don't like doing that one. So let's try with the counter signal. Like, how often does that not happen? I don't know. It probably doesn't. It's probably not a very good basis for a trade. But on what basis for do you place your manual trades? Well, I can only explain that one particular situation. So that one particular situation, I'm not expecting there to be a very strong imbalance in the flows in the treasuries today, because it's an NVDA earnings day. So most people are going to be sitting on their hands. And the only ones that I would expect to really be trying to put a lot of money at work would be people bidding up the NASDAQ because they think that the earnings are going to be good, right? But over here in the treasuries, I'm expecting the flows to be relatively mild, and that is what we've seen. And they were starting to break the outside of the range in a way that really kind of suggested strong trending action that was not justified by the context of the day. So that's why I felt that I should be able to get a tick or two between 13.5 and 14. That basically you're going to get a false breakout and it bounced back up sort of a thing. Well, we did get that, but it went more ticks against me than I was anticipating. So if I had held on to it, it would have worked. Oh, I can't see it. Why is that? Sometimes this positions window like gets screwed up. I don't know what that's about. There it is right there. So it went 3 ticks against me for something that was only going to be 2 ticks favorable excursion. So that's kind of why I bailed on it. Probably wouldn't take that one live, but that's kind of a little bit more of an experiment. But it still kind of shows you the sorts of things that I'm looking at when I'm deciding to take a trade, right? I'm going to have like larger term information that I believe predicts the flows. And then I'm going to be taking trades based on the flows that I expect to be seeing. Oh, I don't know if that's a financial schedule based trade. Yeah, kind of. So the problem, Frederick, is that, so we know that there's NVIDIA earnings today, so I can program that, right? But really what we have to do is we have to consider all of the flows that are going to come into the market today. Another flow that we have to consider is the 7-year auction. I don't know how the 7-year auction will affect things. I haven't really seen behavior that kind of says there's a 7-year auction today. So that's a little bit odd. But, you know, that would be another thing to program. And there's probably like, you know, several dozen things like that, right? And a lot of the time, it's hard to find the data for it, right? Like, in order to program this one thing, I would have to have access to data that tells me the earnings for every major stock. And I would also have to have some way of saying that this stock is particularly important to the market, because most of them aren't going to have, you know, change the flows for me in the treasuries. But in this case, NVIDIA is, right? So can you see how there's like, it in theory, it's automatable, but in practice, at least with our resources, it's not really very practical, but that we can try and trade it discretionarily, with the downside being that we can't test it in that way. So we just kind of have to, you know, trust that the information and the edge that we have is going to come through in the end. I like the idea of trimming government VAT. I think qualified and ethical people should be doing the job, not a recipient of billions of government subsidies. Nah, I actually disagree with you on that. I think that Elon Musk is uniquely suited to do this job. And part of the reason why he's uniquely suited to do this job is because the person that is like quote unquote qualified and ethical, not that I'm saying that Elon Musk is not ethical, but Elon Musk is a risk taker, right? And if you really put the person in that like Democrats would think is acceptable to do that job, wouldn't cut anything, right? You need somebody that's actually a little bit reckless. Have him come in, just absolutely create carnage. And then once you've created the carnage, then you can kind of see, okay, where are there actual problems? Like, okay, we actually do need this job. We actually do need this job. And the pendulum will come back the other way, and you'll bring some of those jobs back. And then hopefully you find a good equilibrium there, and government is smaller overall. You can get the data, but I see that's a complex, yeah. Well, I think in that case, you definitely can get the data. I don't know if it's available to me, you know? And that's the thing, is that like, that's just one thing. And there's so many other things that we're going to want to factor in there. And that's probably each going to be like its own set of data. So like, I think that if I was a bank, that maybe I could write it, but it would be a big project, you know? And I do kind of wonder if firms like Renaissance Capital, that is actually what they're doing. Would you then hire someone else to... Well, I think that in 2 years' time, it will be pretty clear where their problems are at that point, right? I've already run into a couple of situations where Musk cut super hard, and it turned out that actually we do need those people. Yeah, so... I don't know. I feel like you're kind of ignoring the thing that I want to talk about, though, which is how do I decide which news stories to care about and which ones not? Because my whole thing is that it seems to me that the Democrat Party is extremely invested in making me invested in what Elon Musk is doing in the Office of Government Efficiency. And I don't really care that much. You have to acknowledge the conflict of interest. I mean, not really. So like, I get why you would say it is a conflict of interest. I mean, I think that it is to some extent a conflict of interest, but it's not a conflict of interest by like relative standards, which is to say that like pretty much anybody that you put into any government position has conflicts of interests of that nature. You know, like people will say, well, Elon Musk, he donated a lot to Donald Trump and he owns a company that gets government funding, right? But like, that's like almost everybody that you put into any kind of a managerial government position. They've all donated to different candidates. If it was like you can't donate to the candidate, because they've donated to the candidate, you can't promote them to a position, like government just wouldn't work. They would have nobody to be able to put into any positions. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And like, to me, it's like, okay, I understand they do get some money. They do get some money from government contracts. It's not like a huge deal to me. That's personal? Well, okay. But I feel like that you're trying to get me to care about it. So like, if you're gonna get me to care about it, you have to give me a good reason. Like, so I'm not even like disputing what you're saying, right? Like, okay, maybe it is a little bit of a conflict of interest with Elon Musk. Why should I care so much? I am a little ADHD. I do kind of have that like the, what do we call it? A heightened sense of justice sort of a thing. Okay? But I'm also practical and I've been through this game and I've lived a good 30 years of my life, 35 years of my life or so. No, not 35. 25 years of my life being like a political creature. So like, I know the kinds of games that they play and everything, and I've just kind of like learned certain things don't matter so much in the long run. You know, I'm able to filter in like, this is so like when the 2008 crisis happened, right? When it first started, well, that was a big deal. I noticed that, hey, this is something that is like going to change the rest of our lives. This is a story I want to pay attention to. This is a story that I care the way that it turns out, right? Elon Musk and the Office of Government Efficiency, I really don't think that that's the case. I mean, like that his, you know, like we kick him out or whatever, changes nothing for me. I don't really think that it really meets that threshold. I think ethical issues are constitutional violations. So yeah, you know what? You must be new at this then, because if you were to care about every possible ethical issue or constitutional violation that happens in modern government, you would just be, you know, in a constant state of hair on fire. Okay. I mean, come on. Just look at, as an example with Joe Biden, right? Forgiving student debt, right? He took a law, he completely abused the law to do something that is, frankly, I think kind of destructive to American society. And then the court struck it down, and then he just turned around and he did the same thing with a similar law, which of course was also going to get struck down, and was all kind of like, well, like, stop me, right? The only way to like really stop that one, which is, in my opinion, like a constitutional violation, is to have a different president. And the reality is that in the modern era, especially Bush onward, that's been like everything that happens in government is that them, you know, kind of testing the limits of their constitutional power and doing things that they're really not supposed to do if they're living by the spirit of the law, and seeing if they can get away with it. So I didn't see everybody flipping out every day when Obama was doing it and when Joe Biden was doing it. And I mean, I do remember some Democrats being upset about some things that, I mean, that was the thing that was funny, is that they were super upset about it when it was George Bush. But then when it was Obama, they all just kind of looked the other way. So why should I care now? It's not going to affect the price of the markets, I don't think. I don't think that it's going to affect order flows. Does it bother you? Scottish Justice is not receiving millions in gifts. So, you know, when that stuff was happening, they had pretty loose rules. But it really doesn't bother me, actually. So this is another one of, like, what they're doing is they're manipulating your attention. I mean, this is the way that the SCOTUS has, like, literally always worked. You don't think that Ruth Bader Ginsburg got some perks from being a justice? Come on. But what they do is they want to get rid of somebody, so they will direct your attention to it. Now, it's like, was never a problem before. It was just like the Federal Reserve, man. Like the guys at the Federal Reserve that kind of got ousted or kind of chased out of it. Well, I mean, they could have stayed in, but they decided to retire, right? But what they did was trivial compared to what other Federal Reserve members have done in the past. like really trivial, right? And it was that only got brought up that time by activists because they were trying to do this takeover of that government agency. Let's get as many of those guys to retire as we can so that we, the liberals, can control the Federal Reserve. Right? That's what it's a game. It's another political game, man. You're letting them manipulate your attention. because Kagan had Applebee's lunches on hers. I know, but it was only because they added new rules, and now we can look at that stuff, right? What was happening 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago? And nobody ever cared. Right? Like, so let me kind of take a step back here, and I'll teach something that I think can really help people in understanding the world. Okay. The meritocracy is really something more to aspire to than it is something to actually practically achieve. Right? We want to say that all decisions and all people that are put into a position are made purely on the merit of the candidate, that nobody ever does anything, kind of bends the rule, uses their influence to help one of their friends, or gives somebody that's in a position of power, some perk in the hopes that that person will do something in their favor. We don't want those things to happen, right? And that's what a meritocracy is about. But the reality is that if we had a world that actually worked like that was perfectly like that, it would be a nightmare. It'd be an absolute nightmare. Can you imagine if your performance day to day on the job determined whether you had the job or not? Because I'll tell you what, like, there's probably, your job and the way that you're doing it that day, there's probably somebody else out there that can do it better than you that day. Like, you might be the best in the world tomorrow, but not the best in the world the day after that. You know what I mean? I should have said it. You might be the best in the world today, but maybe not tomorrow, right? Like a pure meritocracy. And the reality is that the way that humans work is we're tribal. Well, what we do is we have our group of people, and it's about 250 people, and you work to improve the lives of the people within your community, even if it's to the detriment of the people outside of that community. That's just the way that people are. Right? And in fact, that behavior is something that evolved because it was very crucial to the survival of our species. Right? So, like, the reality is that people will have relationships, and that people will get jobs based on their connections, and that the best person for the job is not always going to be the one that is chosen. And should that be something that we're like up in arms about all of the time? Well, the meritocracy is something we should aspire to. We should try to make our society as based on merit as much as possible. But we also have to acknowledge that we're always going to fall short of it. Right? So if all you ever do is focus on in the places where we've fallen short of it, then you're always going to be perpetually upset about something. And that again then becomes something that politicians will just use to manipulate you. Because the politician will always be able to find something that's going on in the government that you're not going to like and that you think we should be up in arms about. And you can't live your life that way, man. I'm telling you, it's not good for your health, and it doesn't accomplish anything. Like, you're going to be upset about that? Is that going to make us closer to a meritocracy? Probably not. True, but there is a huge contrast between that and the past 5 years of hiring people based on race and/or their intersexuality ranking, and because the U.S. started doing that, they're doing it in Europe too. Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about that, because the DEI thing is an issue. There was a vote yesterday at the Apple shareholder conference that somebody put up an initiative that was to get rid of Apple's DEI programs. And the shareholders almost unanimously rejected that. The problem is that the term DEI is a little bit too broad. So the reality is, and I'm going to say something that conservatives aren't going to like, but it's the truth. The reality is that having a diverse labor base is beneficial to a company. It is. If I'm a bank, I want to have people that came from the East Coast and that came from the West Coast. I want to have people that came from India, but I don't just want people that came from India. I want people that came from the rich parts of India and from the poor parts of India and that went to an Ivy League school and that didn't go to an Ivy League school. I want as diverse of a set of opinions and approaches to things as I can possibly get. And that does mean that, yes, if there's anything that I can do to increase like the racial diversity of my workers, it's to my advantage. This is just the way it is. And there's actually quite a lot of data to back this approach up. But that kind of becomes a problem if every company out there is taking that approach and it becomes that you're more employable because you're a minority. That's not okay, right? And of course, they're not supposed to have quotas, right? So if a company has a quote unquote quota that people like get paid or something like that, or people are picked in some way to fit a quota, then that's illegal and they should be prosecuted for it, right? But if you have a company that values diversity, talks about we want to be a diverse workforce all the time, and they do everything in training people and in the corporate culture that they have to try and make people of different cultures feel as welcome as possible, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's probably a big advantage to that business, right? So now I have established a framework. Now we can look at what are some things that were happening in DEI that were okay and that were not okay. It's okay to have a diversity as a corporate value. It is not okay to subject your workers to a white rage session. That was something that was happening, because they were bringing in these like super politically charged people to come in and share their intersectionality ideology and try and force it on the workers. And it, basically get up and like, okay, all of the white workers now have to come out and talk about why being white is bad. That was happening. Probably like small cases, but we definitely have documented cases of that happening. That's inappropriate, right? If Apple is doing those sorts of things, they should stop doing them. And then the other big one that we know has happened is having racial quotas for like board seats. Get what they're trying to do? Like, you want underrepresented groups to have more positions of power so that maybe those groups will be represented better. But you shouldn't be doing it. You should be, especially for board seats, it should be the most qualified person. True, it's always the extremes that mess up any government policy. Well, yeah, and that's another thing, is it certainly shouldn't be a government policy, right? What evidence is there that many DEI hires were unqualified? So I don't think that there's anything to suggest that like DEI hires were unqualified, but we did have this thing where basically like over that 2-year time span, like a lot more black people were hired into roles than white people. So like it got to the point where where certain groups were essentially being put at a systemic disadvantage purely because of their race, and that's not okay. Right, because otherwise then it comes back to the meritocracy argument, right? Meritocracy is something that we should aspire to, but it's not actually practical, and so you can't sit down and say that every person that was chosen for every role ever was the most qualified candidate, because the reality is that we just don't have the information to know who is truly the most qualified candidate for something. And you're probably going to get to a point where it's like you have multiple people that seem equally qualified to you. And how do you pick which one that you're going to choose? The guy that you like the most? Probably. And you know what? That's probably a good thing for the organization, because you're going to work better if you like the person. But it seems to me that, like, trying to fill diversity was also a factor in there. That's where it's kind of like, now you're kind of getting into the fuzzy area, but I don't think it's over the line. But if it's then resulting in a systemic problem in the society, which it was, then it is a bad thing, right? I can't prosecute anybody about it, but I can say that it was a bad thing. I love the sidebar conversation. It's still an occasional bonds just moved 3. Yeah, I know, right? But you know what? It hasn't really moved that much in the last hour, has it? So my reading of the flows was actually pretty good. This is the whole thing. If you're new here, one of the issues that I've had is that you get a lot of times where I expect the flows to be relatively flat. And if we could make money during those periods, it would make things a lot easier. But every kind of way that I've tried to go about trying to take advantage of those doesn't work out. It just always turns into, like, the market maker is in charge, and it doesn't matter what you do, eventually you get screwed over. So it's best to just not touch them. I would remember a motorhome gift. I don't know. I'm not taking a position on whether or not a Supreme Court justice violated ethics standards or not. What I'm questioning is if it's really worth your attention. If it's really something that we should make a big deal out of. Because I think that it's being made a big deal out of because he's a Republican. And we want to get rid of him so that Donald Trump can put another republic. But then that's kind of where it's like, since Donald Trump has been president, you haven't really heard very many things like that, have you? In fact, I bet you that the number of stories out there about a certain Republican abusing their power or violating ethics standards is going to go down substantially in the next 4 years. Because 1, they'll have more Republicans in government to hide it. And 2, the government's not going to be interested in reporting on it, because then that just allows you to replace them with somebody younger. Right? So they'll wait until a Democrat is in power, and then all of a sudden, all of the nasty things about that we might be able to know about a Supreme Court justice will come out. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's the way it works, man. So what is it? What all you're pointing out is the way in which Democrat Party allies are trying to manipulate our attention. We haven't actually set up a workable framework as to where we should actually, where our attention really should be. Especially for trading. I mean, does anybody else disagree that that's not a story that's particularly relevant to the markets? I suppose if the justice was resigning, then it would be a different thing. But until a Supreme Court justice resigns, it's probably not really worth my attention. Cute life, how is it? It's great. You go and look at, like, I'm actually very, very intentional about, like, what I pay attention to, because I've seen this. I can see the attention biases, right? Like, whatever is the hot stock that day, I don't really care about it. Like, I read about it, but I don't don't think about it that much. Because they want you to focus all your attention in that. That's kind of where they make their money. You want to get into the things that nobody's paying attention to, right? Okay. And yes, it is a cute life because honestly, if you're sitting there and you're worrying about every unethical piece of behavior that's ever uncovered under government, I just can't imagine how you live. Because what you're doing is you're getting yourself super, super worked up over something that that is always there. You know? That's like freaking out every time that there's a slight discoloration on your skin, you know? Well, it's not, you want your skin to be perfect, yeah, but guess what? It's not. Is it a huge deal? No. Could it be cancer? Maybe, but usually not. If you know, it's big enough and it matches the certain qualifications, then maybe it's cancer and I go in and I have it looked at, and then if they tell me it's cancer, then I care, right? And I'm just saying I don't really see like why this particular thing meets the level of this is cancer. It sounds to me like pretty typical government stuff. And like more to the point, they've always been really lax with Supreme Court justices. Not just because they have a lot of power, but I think that maybe there are some advantage, maybe some benefits to the overall system from it being really lax like that. And it was all, you know, it was just until somebody started complaining about it, then we have to do something about it. Otherwise, I don't think anybody would care. I'm not trying to say like bribery is okay or anything. I'm just saying it happens. Well, and this isn't like overt bribery per se. This is really kind of more like rich people, you know, give each other perks a lot. Yeah. Okay, guys, it's time I should get going. So I will see you tomorrow. You know what? Our algorithm today did not end up taking any trades, so that's kind of good. There was not a large enough of an imbalance in the flows for it to get into anything. I am a little disappointed. I would like to see it take a trade, just to confirm that the changes that we made were fixed. But I got a lot to do today. Tomorrow will probably be more free. And then if you, especially Julian, if you have more code problems, we'll want to try and fix those. So otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay excellent, team.